I don't want Marvel Comics' modern take on anything anymore. Their modern take on everything sucks. Their modern take on Iron Man sucked. I saw Riri Williams. I saw Ironheart. I don't want it. Their modern take on Captain America, Falcon Cap, don't want it. Their modern take on Hulk, Gogurt Hulk, don't want it. Nobody wants Marvel Comics' modern take on anything. If you're an Avengers fan, at least a Marvel Comics Avengers fan, there has been much to crow about. For a few years at least now, the Jason Aaron run, which started out actually pretty good. I thought it was kind of hot at the beginning. It got into that stupid War of the Realms event, and it just went off the tracks and never came back and just got worse and worse and worse. Jed McKay's been on the book, and it's been very flat and boring and stupid, and just the names of all his fucking villains are so stupid. The Ashen Combine. Like, get out of here, man. The one good thing is we did have Avengers Twilight. Chip Zdarsky, Daniel Cunha, telling a dark dystopian future version of the Avengers, focusing on Steve Rogers as basically a fallen hero. Bad times happen, rediscovers his heroism, leads the charge, and basically saves humanity and all that stuff in the end. It probably needed one or two more issues to fully develop and explain out some of the in-game stuff that happens at the end of that book. I just don't know how Janet Van Dyne emerged from that ring unaged and unaltered and all that kind of stuff, but I'll go with it. Other than that, the story's good. A welcome relief for Avengers fans that wanted a decent Avengers book, because there just isn't any out there. And they're following that up with another mini-series featuring Steve Rogers leading an Avengers team. And this time, the outlook is not quite so grand. First off, it's rolling out of Blood Hunt. Don't know why that's happening. Steve Rogers is leading the team, but it's mostly a team of jabronis, a bunch of characters nobody cares about, a few that have been mainstays on the Avengers, but for the most part, it's a bunch of nobodies, a bunch of characters no one cares about. And then the coup de grace itself is the creator they put on it. No Chip Zdarsky this time. Now we're getting Steve Orlando. And from everything that I hear, if you go and you meet the guy in person, he's a fucking gem of a guy. Hell of a nice guy. He cannot write comic books. That's the big problem. That probably should be the number one criteria for writing a Marvel comic book. And let's get into all the dirty details of why Marvel Comics apparently hates Steve Rogers, Captain America, and the Avengers themselves. Steve Rogers is back in action as the leader of a new squad of Avengers as part of Blood Hunt, and following the conclusion of the massive summer crossover, the original Captain America is sticking around Avengers Mansion to keep leading his own team of Earth's mightiest heroes. As for who's on the team alongside Steve Rogers, there's Janet Van Dyne Wasp, Clint Barton Hawkeye, Hercules, Monica Rambeau Photon, She-Hulk, Night-Thrasher, Lightning, Wonder Man, Shang-Chi, and Julie Power Lightspeed, with different members showing up for each mission. The team's official name in comics is Avengers Emergency Response Squad, or Avenge, period, E period, R period, S period, Avengers. I'm not making it up. That's the real name of the book, because they still wanted to call it Avengers. So it's just Avengers Earth. Whatever, man. You can't make this stuff up. Only Marvel Comics editorial could come up with the name quite that stupid. Obviously, this is supposed to be like West Coast Avengers or something like that. The secondary Avengers team. Why the fuck is Steve Rogers leading the secondary anything? Why isn't Steve Rogers the leader of the Avengers? Well, they've got Captain America Brave New World with Falcon Cap as Captain America, so we got to put him to the sideline. Sideline one of our best-selling heroes, certainly the best leader the Avengers have ever had, and throw him on a team full of jabronis. We might get a Captain America, Julia Powers, freaking Hercules team-up book we've all been waiting for. Said nobody in the history of Marvel Comics. How could they keep dropping the ball like this? It was so nice having Avengers Twilight. Certainly it wasn't your typical Avengers team. It wasn't your typical setting. It was supposed to be something more akin to Kingdom Come, but at least it was a good book. At least Steve Rogers was a major part of it. At least he was basically leading the charge of the revolution, all that stuff. And it was a breath of fresh air. This is where Marvel Comics are right now with Steve Rogers and the Avengers. A competent story featuring either, and certainly both, is a breath of fresh air. Oh my goodness, they actually didn't screw it up this time. The bar has never been lower for success on Captain America or the Avengers. Yet Marvel Comics continuously just dropped the ball. I assumed JMS on Captain America was going to be fine. Not a very good book. But I also assumed Jed MacKay on Avengers would be pretty good. You know, Moon Knight had been a whole lot of fun. But here's the thing with Jed MacKay and why he is truly the Joshua Williamson of Marvel Comics without the sales success that Joshua Williamson actually has with his name. If he has more than 2 books in a month, everything he writes goes flat and it becomes really stale and boring. Go read Doctor Strange, go read the Avengers, go read Moon Knight right now, because he dropped the ball on that one too. The book that basically made people think maybe Jed MacKay is going to be a somebody. Not the case. Go read Blood Hunt. What a shit show that was. In the first book, you introduce the Blood Coven. They literally lay waste to the entire Avengers team. I think they kill 3 members of them. The second issue, the rest of the Avengers just blow them away and basically murder all of them. That's how bad this guy is right now. He can't write to say anything. Of course, he's going to be the new writer of X-Men, the flagship book there. So what a bad team. Obviously, Janet Van Dyne Wasp, original founding member of the Avengers, belongs right there next to Steve Rogers. Clint Barton belongs right there next to Steve Rogers. I'll even take Hercules, but the rest of the team sucks. Nobody wants Wonder Man. Nobody wants Shang-Chi. Nobody expects to see Night-Thrasher. Monica Rambeau, Photon, been ruined by Captain Marvel and all that kind of stuff. And it's just that's the state of Steve Rogers. He's just the throw-in Captain America nowadays. Of course, it gets worse. Not just the cast around Steve Rogers and Avengers Assemble. Where it gets really worse is the creative talent around the book. From the pages of Jed MacKay's hit run on Avengers, this new spin-off series will be written by Steve Orlando, a team of icons and new recruits alike, but heavy on the icons. And in every issue, a barn burner of an entire story packed into 20 pages, says writer Steve Orlando in the announcement from Marvel. Orlando will be joined by a rotating cast of artists, including Corey Smith, Scott Eaton, Marcelo Ferreira, and Valentina Pinti. So they already know the book is dead before it comes out, because they can't even put an artist on it for 4 or 5 issues or whatever this limited series is actually going to run. But it's like, yeah, just a little throw-in work. Let's get Corey Smith on there. Corey Smith's a great artist. Don't know that he works for a Steve Rogers-led Avengers book, but I'll take it because he's actually good. I like Marcelo Ferreira. Scott Eaton, not so much. Valentina Pinti, whatever. But it's Steve Orlando. Steve Orlando is the enormous black eye. I think a good writer could probably take Steve Rogers and a bag of jabronis and be able to make a good story out of it. But Steve Orlando can't make a good story out of anything. I guess the only saving grace about all this information is that Steve Orlando's self-insert character, Somnus the Sleep Raper, isn't going to be in the book. Or at least I assume he's not, because Somnus is not in the announcement or whatever like that. I'm sure he wanted to put him in there, but thankfully Somnus the Sleep Raper is being put to the wayside. Hopefully he went into the white hot room with all the other leftover lame-ass mutants that nobody cared about, never to be heard from again, hopefully for 100 fucking years or whatever. He has yet to write a single issue since arriving at Marvel Comics that is okay. Even like average is something that he has not been able to achieve in like over 2 years at this point. Obviously, he was working heavily on the X-Men stuff, the Krakoan era, which fit right into his wheelhouse, you know, gay fanfic, /fic, whatever you want to call it. And he was able to do a lot of things that he wanted to. Hopefully, with better oversight by Will Moss, the new group editor for Avengers, maybe there will be a better outcome here. But literally every single thing Steve Orlando has done at Marvel Comics has been atrocious. Why haven't they like gotten rid of this guy right now? I understand when times are really, really good and sales are going great that maybe you can bring along a couple of scragglers, maybe a couple of people that can't keep up with your regular writing staff to try and develop them and all that kind of stuff. He's had 2 years. He's failed every step of the way. And Marvel sales aren't good right now. They're not good really across the board, other than it appears the Ultimate line is doing rather well right now. Obviously, you've got Amazing Spider-Man, but even those sales aren't good. They cannot afford to just do this stupid shell game that they've been doing for years and years, shuffling the decks and hoping people don't realize, oh, that's the same Steve Orlando that introduced the Sleep Raper and Marauders that ruined that book. Well, maybe I should jump on his Avengers book. Customers aren't thinking that way. They are looking hard at who the creative teams are. And every time you put Steve Orlando on a book, it's basically a warning, a label saying, Do not read. This is going to be dog crap. I just can't get over the fact that they keep hiring this guy and putting him on new projects, even though he's failed every step of the way. The only time he's had any success was a brief period of time at DC Comics when they had good editorial. Big time editorial oversight to help him craft his stories and not shit the bed every time he writes something, but he's not getting that, and nobody's getting that at Marvel Comics. And that's why you know this thing is going to be trash. This is how you know they don't care about Steve Rogers as Captain America right now, because they're putting him with jabronis like Steve Orlando, people that don't care about the characters of the universe or any of that kind of stuff. Inspired by the team he pulled together during Blood Hunt, Avengers Assemble sees Captain America take on a new initiative, recruiting new and classic Avengers for an all-new squad. Cap's team will operate out of Avengers Mansion and tackle one crisis after another on globe-trotting superhero missions, expanding the scope of current Avengers storytelling. Avengers Assemble will offer readers a modern take on classic Avengers adventure and drama. With a new threat every issue, these fast-paced stories will be jam-packed with action intermixed with exciting team bonding, thoughtful character development, and interpersonal stakes. Now, there's a lot to what they're trying to sell there in the Marvel Comics announcement that actually makes sense. Hey, one-and-done stories, I'm all for that. I think that is the way to do periodic storytelling, especially in comic books, which we do not get very much. And that kind of gets me excited. And, you know, a globe-trotting adventure makes me think of Chris Claremont on X-Men back in the day, when they would start one place, next thing you know, they're on another continent, then they're in Asia, and the next thing you know, they're back and they're playing baseball, finishing up their adventure, before you get reminded of another villain that was introduced by Chris Claremont along the way that is now the big bad. And I think that's wonderful storytelling for the superhero medium and genre, the way that Marvel Comics and DC want to publish them. So I'm all for that. But then you get the modern take on classic Avengers. I don't want Marvel Comics' modern take on anything anymore. Their modern take on everything sucks. Their modern take on Iron Man sucked. I saw Riri Williams. I saw Ironheart. I don't want it. Their modern take on Captain America, Falcon Cap, don't want it. Their modern take on Hulk, Gogurt Hulk, don't want it. Nobody wants Marvel Comics' modern take on anything. You need to get back to the basics, the core elements of who the characters are, what makes the universe special, and then build from there. Stop putting people like Steve Orlando and trying to get modern takes on these heroes. It really just turns people off. I know you're still searching for that modern audience, that new audience that likes to pirate books instead of pay for them, but they just aren't coming around. It's time to get back to actual traditional storytelling and get some new readers in that actually want to read comic books, that actually like superheroes. So the formatting, fine. If that's what they want to do, I don't believe that it'll work because I don't think they'll stick to it. But in my opinion, that is the way to go. It's even made Ryan North on Fantastic Four somewhat bearable. Ryan North, a terrible comic book writer, currently his Fantastic Four run are basically one-shot stories. And a lot of times they're bearable, and sometimes they're even good. Now, sometimes they are absolute trash, but a lot of times you can check it out, you can enjoy the story, which is something we hadn't seen in a long time, and something I certainly didn't expect from Ryan North because of how bad he's been in the past. I do not see that kind of turnaround happening with Steve Orlando because he's been writing for a very, very long time, and he basically is who he is at this point. If you are not sold on Avengers Assemble at this point, Marvel Comics has another selling point. It's called nostalgia. And did someone say jackets? The team's trademark 90s leather jackets are back and more in style than ever. Check them out in Corey Smith's special jacket variant cover. That's right, folks. If you don't like the take on Steve Rogers, if you don't like his group of jabronis, if you don't like the writer, we've got bomber jackets from the 90s. One of the like most 90s things ever. Kind of weird, but I guess they can get some variant covers out of them that might sell on nostalgia alone, which is basically what Marvel Comics are fully invested at this time because they know they can't sell the stories based on the creative talent because they have none. They can't sell the stories based on the quality of the story because there is none. And it's just a bunch of stupid gimmicks, and it wouldn't surprise me if Will Moss or maybe Tom Brevoort or maybe even Jordan D. White, one of the Legion of Doofuses, went up to David Gabriel and was like, listen, we can do a 4-issue limited series. It doesn't matter who writes it, but we can do 90s Avengers bomber jackets on a variant cover, and that gimmick alone will make us a little bit of scratch. That's probably the only reason they made the book, was so they could do something stupid like that. But that's what Marvel Comics are relegated to. Gimmickry, variant covers. Let's bring back something that wasn't all that popular to begin with, just to remind people that it happened one time on a cover. because we are not going to actually hire good people. We're not going to actually put a good team of Avengers around Steve Rogers because he's not important anymore. We've got a new Captain America that we think is more important, even though it's been roundly rejected by Marvel Comics readers for over a decade at this point. If you are not familiar with Steve Orlando and why he is such a putz, he will actually explain it to you in his own words. I talked about it in a video not long after he came over to Marvel Comics, was working in the Cohen era, the era that really fit him best. If you haven't seen this video and what a moron this guy is when it comes to comic books, you got to check it out right here. This thing is absolutely fun. You're going to dig it.